And one thing I spoke with both of you about are some of the core principles that athletics teach. Because I think we do have to maybe have a more realistic outlook, especially with the youth. But sports teach, I played basketball, and it taught me a lot of things like perseverance, things like that. Mr. Henry?
Definitely. You know, I could never get out of my head. As one coach I had at Roosevelt Park in Los Angeles, and he always like, don't quit, don't quit. You know what I mean? It's still to this day, he said it so much, you know, it's just ringing all the time. But I mean, yeah, you get so many good principles, you know, conviction and honesty and hard work. And we know the statistics show that our K through 12 athletes fare way better than the students who don't participate in extracurricular activity.
Being on a team is you're working in a group, you're learning responsibilities. It's sort of like your family, your teammates. It's, you know, it's helping them, they helping you, you're making friends for life. Practice time, games, being physically fit, physically and mentally. It's a responsibility, and time management is so important because you don't have a lot of time to be, you know, laying around kind of goofing off, because you've got practice, you've got schoolwork, you've got your tests. You try to incorporate your your social life into this atmosphere. So I think for student athletes today, there's a lot of pressure because not only do they have to perform amongst a group of people, but they have to perform in the classroom. It's a difficult process. But I think that tends to accelerate the maturity process because there is so much time management. And I see it a lot, and James can attest to this, you know, the group of people that you work with, your teammates, they're teammates for life, and you want to help them, they'll help you, and it's sort of like a family, and I think that helps you down the road.
But something you did say was they have to spend so much time, like you said, watching film, doing all those kind of things. Is there enough time dedicated to the self-maturation, the academics? Is there enough, should there be more time based on that? Because it's student first, athlete second. Should more time be dedicated to the classroom? Would it help graduation rates?
I think so. I think if you look at and I'll take basketball, which is the key sport here at Cal State Northridge. They have a daily plan. They have class in the morning. They have maybe physical therapy in the early afternoon. They have practice in the afternoon. They have study hall at night. Maybe they have a social life where they may want to go out to a movie or go on a date or something like that. Their days are pretty structured. So I think there is a maturation process in knowing that when you're on scholarship, you know, you have an obligation to yourself, to your family, to your coaches, to your school, to represent your school as best as possible. And there is a code that when you are on scholarship at, I don't care where it is, I don't care if it's at Northridge or at UCLA or Notre Dame, you are representing your school. And I think there's a proud factor when our kids go on the road. They wear their jerseys, they wear their sweatshirts that say Cal State Northridge on them. So there is a degree of responsibility that they have that maybe the overall student body doesn't have, and because you are out in the public performing and representing your school, Cal State Northridge.
Are you satisfied with the answer? Do you think more time should be?
I mean, if you're saying that we have 8% graduation rate on our basketball team, of course, whatever it is not working. So, but I think also we would have to study that a little further, because some of those students may transfer. Some of those students, you know, may not have had academic trouble and stop attending the university.
It's a 6-year graduation, and some of those kids might graduate in 7 years.
And I think a solution, though, would be to have somebody try and recapture that group. I know the NCAA has strict rules about graduation rates for our athletes.
They're now presenting figures, yearly figures, and now the coaches are now being singled out about their graduation rate during their tenure as head coach. We didn't have those figures before. It was basically a school document about your graduation rate. Now the coaches are now being singled out for their graduation rate. So I think that's a wake-up call to the coaches, like, oh my gosh, I better get my act together and make sure these kids
yeah, because you have the full gamut. You have those coaches that will go that extra mile to make sure all those, you know, their athletes are taken care of academically. Then you have those other coaches who are like, I need the best athlete, I need them right now, and that's it.
Because one study, well, it's kind of a big question, but it pretty much showed the disparity between, like, a lot of schools, they just want to get athletes when it comes to young black men. They had a study where they had, like, Boise had 90 male black full-time students and 50 of them were athletes. I mean, because you kind of spoke to some of the coaches just want to, you know, kind of just exploit these kids.
I think every school is different. Every philosophy is different. And I could name specific schools, and I won't, but they know who they are, who are there to win games, and they're looking for an athlete. They're not looking for a student athlete. Now, there are other schools who look for student athletes, who want to be known as schools who compete successfully in athletics and graduate their kids. And we all know who those schools are, the Dukes and the Stanfords and I'll even say Notre Dame as well. So luckily, I think
you're saying those schools care more about athletics, or
no? I think those schools have made a commitment to both athletics
and students.
They kind of lead the pack.
Okay.
You know, and then, but I think, like I said, each school is different, and like I said, there's a spectrum. There's some schools that just want to win, and we all know who they are.
What about Cal State Northridge?
I think they have a commitment to making those kids graduate. The graduation rate should be better. We know that. We are working on that situation. Like I said, it's a slow step, but those are meaningful steps, and we take it quite seriously. Do we have a ways to go? Absolutely. Absolutely. We acknowledge that.
Mr. Henry, are you satisfied with that answer, or?
Yeah, again, I've already mentioned, you know, CSUN is definitely committed to its student athletes. Again, I think, you know, I don't think a lot of people had that statistic that you threw out about, you know, our graduation rates. So again, how do we address that knowing that that's an issue?
Okay, and what about with other sports? Like, we kind of focused a lot on football and basketball. Do you notice the same things with young black males in other sports, or?
Well, it depends on the sports. You know, gymnastics is different, swimming is different, basketball is certainly different, football is certainly different. Each individual sport has their graduation rates that are higher than others.
I want to thank my guest, Mr. Vazquez, and I want to thank my guest, Mr. Henry. Thank you very much for tuning on to On Point. I'm Rory O'Sullivan. So what about the Sports Illustrated, the whole Reggie Bush scandal, the agent? I mean, we might not have that a lot on Cal State Northridge. We spoke about that, but can you guys get into that a little bit, Mr. Henry?
Reggie Bush made the University of Southern California a whole lot of money with those bowl games. He doesn't have the money to buy a home for his parents to stay in. So I just wish the media would have put more responsibility on whoever it was at USC that went to him and said, hey, we know you're living in this condition. Would you like to live in this condition?
You agree?
It made a very difficult situation for the current players there at USC, and I admire Reggie Bush. I hope he got his degree. I hope I know he's learned from this, and I'm sorry to say that he turned in his Heisman Trophy. I'm not sure that was something he wanted to do, but he did.